Welcome to White Line Fever Live. Welcome to White Line Fever. And if you're listening on rugbyleague.com, welcome to our first ever live show. And I think it was probably a fitting time to interrupt that podcast because they talked about Tony Smith being sacked tomorrow. Well, they were out by one day because the Hull FC coach has been given his marching orders. He even said in the press release that he was looking forward to staying his tenure. But the club has thought otherwise. So that's why we've decided to start this episode of White Line Fever Kicks, record an episode for everybody, and also to go live for the first time. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, about what you're listening to right now live, where it comes from, and the nightmare I've had today trying to set it up. But first, let's just go for the statement, because as I said, it's not every day that a head coach departs a club, I guess, by, quote, mutual consent. Hull FC can confirm that head coach Tony Smith has left the club by mutual consent. He leaves the club after 18 months in charge of the first team squad. Stanley Gennay will also depart his role as assistant coach. Assistant coach Simon Grix and head of emerging talent Francis Cummins will take charge of the first team on an interim basis. Hull FC chairman Adam Pearson said, "On behalf of everyone associated with Hull FC, I would like to thank Tony and Stan for their contribution to the club during their time with the first team. They have worked tirelessly, and it is disappointing to have had to come up with this decision, but it is one I feel is right at this time. I wish them both well for the future. There will be further restructuring of the club in the coming days, and we will update further in due course." Tony Smith is quoted in the press release. As I said, "I want to wish the club and all the players well for the future. It's disappointing not to see this job through, which was always going to be a challenging project, and I was relishing the opportunity to see it through. I wish everyone at the club the best for the future." So, mutual consent, a pretty clear example of who mutually offered their consent first. That would have been the club, not Tony Smith, who was very insistent and consistent in saying that he wanted to stick around. Now, the question is, and in the podcast we were just listening to, they said that sacking a coach isn't the answer. And I think that was agreed by everybody that Hull FC have done this before mid-season. They've got a record of doing it, and it hasn't worked in the past. And the consensus from the guys on 40-20 who you heard from just then before we cut to me was that it was a bad idea. And here's the reason it is a bad idea. Sky last weekend posted the estimated figures that each club is spending. And the Hull FC came in 9th out of 12 teams, spending £1.8 million, compared to Wigan spending 3.1. Only Salford, Castleford and London were below them, and their only victory this year is over London. So I don't know what sort of coach is going to... obviously Salford have been getting some good results, but they were defeated by Cass last weekend. So I don't know what coach is going to get, these the results that would please Adam Pearson if with only £1.8 million being spent on players. And it does seem to be, I'm not going to say knee-jerk, it just seems to be a muscle memory on the part of an English sports club owner to... the answer to losing is to get rid of the coach, and then you get the speckies off your back for a little while, and it's not your fault. I just don't know where the club goes from here, because they've done it so many times before. Now, just looking at a few stories, and in the response to this. Tex Hoy, if you're an aficionado of what goes on Rugby League Players' social media, Tex Hoy unfollowed Hull the other day, and his father was giving them what for on Instagram after he'd been shopped around to other clubs. Now, Tex Hoy is still on the open market, according to the Hull Daily Mail, Hull Live. The reporter there, Daniel Tomlinson, says that his understanding is that it doesn't affect the severance package of Tony Smith. Lingy Sao is another player who has been rumoured to be leaving the club. The same publication reporting that he's not off contract. In fact, he signed an extension, but a lot of people still think he's going to leave. He was sent to the sin bin twice at the weekend. So just as again, thanks for joining us on the podcast, White Line Fever Kicks. It's not often I do a podcast where I'm just talking to myself. I don't have a guest, but I think it's a pretty special occasion today, not because Tony Smith has been sacked, but because rugbyleague.com has finally gone live. What rugbyleague.com is a 24-hour rugby league radio station. And a little bit of background, we're using a lot of those. If you ever listen to American radio where it's all automated, and you might wonder why certain things cut out before the ad's over, or people get cut off, or I listen to a podcast where there's a ballad at the end of every show, and in 2 years I've never heard the ballad at the end of the show because the automated system has cut that ballad off. Well, I'm kind of dealing with a similar system from scratch, from absolute rookie, novice level, dealing with that sort of system here today. So I've been sitting in front of the computer since 8 a.m. this morning, stopping, Christmas wishes going out and the time going out at the wrong time, and trying to also prevent podcasts being repeated. But it's a super exciting thing, and the background of it is simply that it's a 24-hour rugby league radio station is something that I wanted to do when I first moved to the UK in 2018, and there was a platform at the time where you could set up and you can get all the podcasts and you could slot them all in, and you could set up your own radio station. And so I did that for a little while. It was complicated for other reasons. You had to cut up the shows, and then where the ads were to go, and all that sort of stuff. So it was complicated for other reasons. So I played with that for about a year. It was very time consuming, and then I went on to other projects. But Paul Fairs, who has been around the game for 25 years, and who is who does the perimeter advertising at a pile of actually 10 of the 12 Super League clubs. He has a background in radio. He was actually a pirate DJ in the North Sea back in the 60s and 70s, and he wanted to do this too. And he owns the URL rugbyleague.com. So it's a really happy confluence of ambitions, really. So we've been working on it for a couple of months now, working up to today. And today was not intended to be anything fancy. We've recorded some news bulletins, which you might have heard, and we have got an arrangement with 2GB where we'll be taking live matches, and I've recorded I think 3 news bulletins as well, which have gone to air and been scheduled. And basically at the moment, I think I did use the term beta test. We're playing out podcasts at the moment and just getting our heads around the system, but it's super cool stuff. I think it's 100% worth doing your head in to learn how to use it. So, so that's what we did today. And this is the first live show we've ever done. And in future, basically we're going to add things as we go with every aspect of this project, which means that the next time I do this show, I might have a better microphone. The time after that, I might be filming it. The time after that, we might have a guest. The time after that, we might have live video on Twitch and YouTube. It's all about just improving as we go. But this is a super cool project. I'm really excited to be involved. And I want to thank anyone who's joined us on our first day, because it is really, from my point of view, historic. I know that the 24-hour Rugby League TV station has changed the way the game is perceived in Australia, and also to an extent in England. And I'd like to think that a 24-hour radio station could have a similar impact in the fullness of time. So that's it, the end of today's episode of White Line Fever Kicks. Thanks for joining us. To our regular listeners, if you're a regular listener, don't forget patreon.com/White Line Fever. And if you're joining us live, I can't tell you how grateful I am for you to be along for the journey today. I've been pulling my hair out, but I've still got plenty left. So until next time, we'll return you to, it's cool to say this, we will return you to normal programming.